That was incredibly inspirational panel, and great to see everything. But so now we're going to switch over to a different purpose-driven marketing here with Tyler. So I want to introduce you to Tyler. Tyler is the digital marketing and innovation manager at Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health. He is the creative content lead for Neutrogena Studios, and he serves as the executive producer of a movie called In the Sun that we're going to see a little snippet of soon, which is the first film from Neutrogena Studios. And he was recently named to Forbes 30 under 30 list for marketing and advertising. So awesome to have you on, Tyler.
Thanks, Ari. Good to chat with you.
Yeah, you're clearly incredibly driven and passionate about everything that you do. So I just want to, before we jump into the movie and your reason, where does all this drive come from? How was this your childhood dream to one day be on the Forbes list? Where does this drive come from?
Well, it was definitely not my childhood dream to be on Forbes 30 under 30, but that was a very nice surprise when I got that last year, and a really nice recognition for some of the work I've done at Johnson & Johnson. But in terms of creating a film with a brand, I mean, as a kid, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, and that's not the safest path, let's be real. Like, the people around me, my family kind of pushed me towards my other passion of marketing. And I always felt that it was a compromise. But what I ended up discovering was that storytelling is kind of that common thread between marketing and filmmaking. And that couldn't be more true than with what you're about to show, which is In the Sun, the first brand funded film from Neutrogena Studios.
It's great. Yeah, let's play the clip. I had a chance to watch the film, and it's a wonderful and emotional and inspirational and everything. But I just want everybody to kind of get a sneak peek of what the film is.
For sure.
I love being out in the sun.
The more sun I absorb, I get that feel-good feelings going on.
The sun makes us happy.
It's also good for us, but if we're not careful, it can harm us.
When you're young, you just don't think that it could happen.
Sunscreen is sticky. It's weird and gross. Because I am brown, that means I don't need it.
So you do have freckles on your back already. That is all from sun damage.
I remember bringing her to the doctor, and the doctor saying, it's fine, but I just knew something wasn't right.
You think you have a plan for your life, and then all plans go out the window.
We were in the sun all the time. If I'd known about sunscreen, my life would have been entirely different.
Never thought it would happen.
Debunks the myth that African Americans don't get skin cancer.
It can happen on anybody.
We have to be able to embrace life in the sun with keeping our skin safe.
No ray of sunlight's ever lost.
Somebody once said there was no race more ridiculous than one in which you are running against a ghost. And that's what I'm doing. I'm running against a ghost.
That's terrific. Yeah. So tell me, Tyler, what are you hoping to achieve with this movie? What's the goal here? What do you want to achieve?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, this all really started when we were looking at trends in the US related to skin cancer. And what we were seeing was that skin cancer rates in the US continued to grow to the point that there was more cases of skin cancer than all other cancers combined. Now, this is extremely problematic, especially because skin cancer is the most preventable cancer. So why is this happening, and what can we do about it? And as Neutrogena, we're a leader in the skin health space. And we said to ourselves, well, what can we do to change the trajectory of skin cancer rates in this country? And we tried things in the past, like PSAs or traditional advertising, but nothing had really moved the needle to the degree that we needed it to. And so as a healthcare company, looking at our brand purpose, we thought we need to do something big here to make a change. And that's really 2 years ago how the idea for In the Sun came about. We said, let's try something different. And we looked in our own backyard. Being based in Los Angeles, we have some of the best storytellers in the world in this city. And so we went and we found some great storytellers, filmmakers. We ended up partnering with Terry Washington, who's a creative consultant for our brand, to executive produce the film with her production company, Simpson Street. And we created a short documentary, In the Sun. It's about 38 minutes long, and it's all about living life safely in the sun. It's a really inspirational documentary. The tone of it is very positive, as you can see in the trailer. And it's going to be coming out on demand next week.
That's great. That's incredibly curious about that topic of how do you change behavior, people behavior. You can do it through many methods. Can be scare tactics. It can be through like interruption marketing and tell them kind of what they should do and tie that to a product that they should buy type of approach. But this is completely different, right? It's a completely different approach to changing people's behavior. And yeah, tell me a little bit about kind of how do you actually change people behavior through storytelling?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. The tone of it, you're right, it's not scary at all. And that's very much intentional. As marketers, we're so used to starting out, you know, when we're working on ad copy, you know, you don't start shooting until you have storyboards and an approved script and the cast finalized. Documentary filmmaking is entirely different. So the only thing that we could really align on before starting shooting was who are the subjects and what was the tonality and the kind of messaging we wanted to get across in this film. And we made a very conscious decision to make it an optimistic story and a hopeful story. And I think it really comes through in the piece when you see it. Part of what we're doing as Neutrogena Studios is we've created a board of advisors. And the idea here is that, you know, at Neutrogena, we're experts in skin health, but we're not necessarily experts in storytelling or behavioral psychology. Mm-hmm. And so for every project that we do as a studio, including this one, we bring along experts in the field to kind of shape that content and make sure it's achieving our purpose. Mm-hmm. So in the case of In the Sun, we worked with the Melanoma Research Foundation and the American Academy of Dermatology. We also have a behavioral psychologist kind of advising on the content and making sure that it's getting through to consumers and leading to what we want it to do. And that tonality, that positive tonality is certainly based in research, and that fear is not necessarily a positive motivator for people to go out and change their behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very good. Great. And now you have an incredible piece of content there and creation of content. So as a marketer, you want as many people as possible to see this content. So how do you approach that challenge now in terms of like getting this in front of as many people as possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. That all comes down to a really strategic distribution plan. So our partners at Passion Point Collective help us market the film, and they are an agency that specializes in brand-funded films. And so part of the strategy here is film festivals. You submit the film to film festivals. To date, we've placed at 7 film festivals, which we're very excited about. Awesome. And that helps build buzz, credibility for the film, because you can see from the trailer, this is entertainment. It's not advertising, and that's very intentional. And so the film festivals we're applying to and that we're screening at are true film festivals. We're in the documentary short category. And so that's kind of the first step to distribution. And then we're going to be available on demand next week. And the intention there is, how do you get it in front of as many people as possible? So we'll be on channels like Apple TV, Google Play, and we'll also be streaming on YouTube because we want this to reach a global audience, and that can help us do that.
That's great. I know that you've had some initial results from it as well. You've had a group of consumers kind of seeing and reacting, and is it driving the actions that you had hoped for and in these early results?
Yeah, at our company, we love to keep our pulse on like consumers and what they're thinking, how they feel, and that was no different within the Sun. So throughout the process, we had check-ins with consumers to make sure that this was a moving piece of content, that it was achieving our objectives. And so I can share a few results, which is that earlier this year, we did a test screening, just the way Hollywood would. And we screened with about 200 individuals, a diverse group from, I think we had representation from every state in the US. And we surveyed them on their attitudes and behaviors related to skin cancer, seeing a dermatologist, sunscreen usage, before and then after watching the film. And what we saw was that after watching the film, 85% of people were more likely to do a skin cancer self-exam. And that for us was a really telling stat. We also saw that 89% were more likely to wear sunscreen. Again, really strong behavior change indication in these results. And I don't think that's something that we'd be able to do if it wasn't a documentary, if it wasn't a film, because there's something so emotionally moving about content like this. It's very much lean in content, not lean back content. Like you're engaged throughout it. We have a cast of some incredible characters. These are real people. We're telling their stories, and it just shows the power of the medium. It's a way to bring our brand purpose to life that we've never done before, and certainly we want to do more of it going forward.
That's great. There are actually, I'm getting some great questions in the Q&A here as well, and one is around kind of what are the biggest challenges that you see around implementing these purpose-led programs. And Neutrogena is obviously a large company, and how do we get these things off the ground?
Yeah, it's certainly not easy, but working at a values-based company helps. You know, Johnson & Johnson's the world's largest broadly based healthcare company. And within Neutrogena, we're the largest skin health brand in the US. And we have a really strong purpose, which is to create a world in which skin is not a barrier to unlock what's best for you. And underneath that purpose, there's kind of different pillars of how we bring the purpose to life. It's so much more than a tagline. There's actionable plans associated with our purpose. And so there's 4 pillars, which are advocacy, education, expertise, and transparency. And In the Sun falls under that pillar of education. So how do we educate the public on better skin health behaviors, sun protection being one of them? So we had internal alignment of, hey, this is a priority for us as a brand to live into this purpose. But then, you know, how do you get something like this done is a whole nother question, because we'd never made a movie before. So honestly, the key here was keep it small to a very core team when you're starting out. And so I think if I think back to a couple of years ago when we filmed this, we ended up cutting together about a 5-minute reel when we were midway through production. And when we showed that reel to people, you know, and executives and leaders in the company, they really got it. The idea alone, hey, let's make a movie about sun protection and skincare. People don't necessarily like understand what you mean because this is such a new space. But getting that 5-minute reel was very key in unlocking more investment and like continuing production to make this as big as possible.
Isn't that the best combination? Big budget and small team. It's much better than the opposite.
If all my projects could be big budget and small, I might be very happy.
Yeah, well, that takes us into the next topic. This is a part of Neutrogena Studios. So this is the first film that's coming out of Neutrogena Studios. But tell us a little bit about kind of how did that idea come about? How did it get created? Now that you can kind of take content marketing to the next level here, what's the background and story behind Neutrogena Studios?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've seen the trailer for In the Sun. That's the first film coming out of Neutrogena Studios. After we finished the film and we saw some of the data around how persuasive it was in driving true behavior change with consumers, we realized that there's so much opportunity here to do more. And so what we did is we created a division under Johnson & Johnson called Neutrogena Studios. And the goal is to tell stories about skin health, celebrate beauty for all, and inspire people to action.
Mm-hmm.
And that last piece, the inspire people to action, is really core. And I think that's differentiated from some of the content studios we've seen from other brands. We really want to drive behavior change in everything we do. It could be behavior change, it could be perception change. It's really clear within the Sun, after watching the film, I've started wearing a daily SPF, and I'm guilty, I never did that before. But it's that idea of long form storytelling can be so persuasive. So what are the other stories that we want to tell as a brand that live into this idea?
Mm-hmm. It's an incredible way to kind of drive that consumer change in consumer behavior. And as you're thinking about kind of how you measure, is there like a logic magic part here where this is magic, and then there's a logic part of it translating into some actions that you want the consumers to take? And I guess Neutrogena is such a big brand that you just get everybody to kind of to think about this. Then it also lifts the sales for the actual product. But tell about that kind of that balance between on one end making a movie, on the other side making sure that there's actions are taken, and one of those actions I assume is hoping that somebody buys the actual product. But it's a fine line to balance, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a fine line, and there's no science to it. I think you have to be comfortable giving up control when you're making a brand funded film like this.
Yeah.
To clarify, the Neutrogena brand does not appear within the film. Aside from the Neutrogena Studios logo at the beginning and a credit at the end, it's an unbranded film. And so as marketers, we can go into it with a plan. And in this case, our plan was, here's 5 different myths about sun protection that we want to bust with the film. For example, tanning. A lot of young consumers think that there's a way to safely tan if you're wearing sunscreen.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's a myth. There is no such thing as a safe tan. If you're getting tan, that is damage to the skin. And especially at a young age, it's more damaging than if you had that damage at an older age. And so we kind of went in with these storylines of, hey, we'd love to capture this. And that's the logic part of it. And that's based in years of consumer research of we understand what those myths are in the sun category. And then the magic part to your question is more like the filmmaking and the casting and the editing of the film. And that's where leaning on an expert storyteller like Kerry Washington, who's an Emmy Award winner, and her production company, Simpson Street, does this for a living, they can help us craft that magic. And they certainly did throughout the process, giving notes on editing, on music, on casting. It really was an invaluable partnership. And I think that's where a lot of the magic came from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Phenomenal. We've got another great question in the chat here, and that was kind of aside from the distributing it through on-demand services, what other plans do you have in terms of getting the content out to as many as possible?
Yeah, definitely the distribution plan I spoke to is a huge piece. There is also a media component, a paid media component to help us get reach. There's a PR component. One component that's pretty untraditional that kind of came up during COVID was a school screening program. We know that education is really important to start young when it comes to safe sun behaviors, because then those behaviors can last a lifetime. And so we have this question of how can we get this film in schools? And, you know, schools do educational screenings often, but how do we get our film in there? Mm-hmm. And so we partnered with our agency and we ended up developing a school screening program. For this film, we feel the right age is in middle school kids. So we created a program. Teachers can sign up. They get a copy of the film. They get a few pieces of like sun care goodies. And then they get an educational guide, like a discussion guide for their students. And I'm excited to share that in just a couple weeks of this program being live, we already have over 1,500 signups from middle school teachers, and it continues to grow. So, and that was before we even mentioned that Kerry Washington was part of the film, because at the time that was under embargo. So we think we can continue to grow this program, and it's an important and unique distribution channel for us.
Great. I want to go back a little bit in time, because before the movie, you also introduced the Neutrogena Skin 360 app, which also was incredibly innovative and great use of technology. Tell me a little bit about that project, and how does that kind of ideas that came out of that, how did that tie into the making of the film?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's related to the making of the film, but the tie there is always having a really strong pulse on consumer behavior. And with Neutrogena Skin 360, what we were seeing was that in the skincare category, there's this big problem of it's hard to shop because there's so many brands, there's so many products, and consumers were raising two issues to us. One was consumers didn't know what their skin type was. Is it oily? Is it dry? Is it combination? I'm not sure what I need. That's more someone who's new to skincare often doesn't know how to figure that out. And then the second thing we were hearing from both beginners and more involved beauty consumers was, I don't know what products are right for me. And I don't know how to create a regimen of these different products to work together to achieve a certain goal, whether that's less fine lines or reduce dark spots. So we kind of took that insight as a company and we said, well, what can we do about this? And we have years of expertise in research and development. And so we partnered with our R&D team and a company called Perfect Corp, who is an expert in skin imaging. And we created the Skin 360 app. And Neutrogena Skin 360 is an at-home skin assessment. It's a free app. You can download it in the App Store or on Google Play. You can also try it on Neutrogena.com. And it gives you an assessment measuring all different parts of your face, the sides as well. And it tells you what your skin type is. And then we guide you to a product regimen. And one of the things I'm most proud of with this product is that we know that no two consumer skin are the same. That's part of our brand purpose. We're a brand for people with skin. And part of that is about unlocking.
It's a big audience.
Yes, it is a big audience, but every consumer has a different skin type. No two consumers are the same. And as a result, we had to make sure the product lived up to that. And I'm proud to say that there's over 2.5 million different possible regimens in the app. So, you know, Ari, if you took it and I took the scan, we'd get very different results in terms of the products that are being recommended. We launched this a couple of years ago and we continue to update it. We've gotten some awesome industry awards from, you know, Wired and Women's Health. And we're excited to keep building this product out.
It's fascinating. Well, so what are some of this was the first time that's done? So I guess there were some learnings of, oh, we didn't think about that, or we have now learned something completely new. Oh, that didn't go as we had intended, or oh, this has been much better than we ever had intended. What are some things on both sides of that? What were some surprises that were, oh, we should have thought about that, or some of the positives as well? It's like, oh, this works actually better than what we had thought. What any learnings that you can share with the group?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, with regard to Skin 360, one of our big learnings was that people wanted a way to get to their scan, that magical scan part, quicker. And so one of the things we did is we launched a web-based version of Skin 360 late last year in Q4. And we've seen so many people using this because there's less barriers. Barriers meaning like you don't have to create an account. You can do it right from a browser. No app download is needed. And so when we took away some of those barriers that we were seeing in our analytics, now we're getting even more people completing their scans, more people getting to their product regimen, and more people buying product. And when we see people purchasing product through Skin 360, it's a very strong indicator that we're living into our purpose because it's a match, right? It's like dating. Like we're finding the right skincare product for their skin tone. And when we see a purchase happen, we're confident that we found that right match for them.
Terrific, great. So there are more new versions coming out of apps and these type of, is that also organized under Neutrogena Studios? Is that, so it has multiple kind of ways of getting to the consumer?
Apps are not related to Neutrogena Studios, but certainly it's something that I work on outside of the studio, and definitely new versions will be coming. We're looking at really innovative ways to take Skin 360, I would say, without giving it away, I would say, how can we take Skin 360 out of the phone and maybe in more of a in-store environment?
Yeah, right, exactly. That makes a natural extension of it. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to talk a little bit about brand purpose as a marketing seminar, and obviously there's a lot of amazing brand purpose that we talked about already, but I know there's another great initiative by Neutrogena, is the Neutrogena Studios First Frame program, which was an inspiring kind of approach to how you can get the film community engaged around this topic as well. Would you share a little bit how that worked?
Yeah, so we created a program called Neutrogena Studios First Frame. And what it is it's a partnership with Ghetto Film School. Ghetto Film School is an incredible nonprofit that's been around for over 20 years, and they empower youth and bring youth into this world of filmmaking. And so as a brand and as a studio, we said, well, we want to tell stories about skin health that live into our purpose. And we also really want to reach Gen Z consumers. And so that's where the Ghetto Film School program comes in, because they're helping us reach young filmmakers. The way the program works is we're selecting 2 Gen Z filmmakers, and then we're going to be funding 2 short scripted films that those filmmakers can write and create. It's an 8-month program. It's a fellowship. So essentially there's training throughout the program with industry experts. They'll get help on things like script writing, production, lighting, editing, etc. And for Neutrogena Studios, the tie is that all the projects will live into the brand purpose. So each filmmaker was given a prompt of how would you envision a world in which skin is not a barrier to unlock what's best for you? So it's the same mission of Neutrogena. And we think there's some really rich territories and storytelling that can happen at the kind of the intersection of that. So excited to see how this program goes. It's just getting kicked off. We have filmmaker selection in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be fun to see kind of what gets submitted and what these filmmaker stories are.
Love that. Skin is not a barrier. That's a phenomenal approach. So yeah, is it too early to say kind of what type of ideas are coming out of these younger filmmakers, or what are you hoping for there?
It's just getting started, so I'm going into it with an open mind, and we're really excited to see what comes out of the program. It's just getting started.
Yeah, I love that. Again, another big budget, small team type of setup. I like it. That's great. So it gave us, I bet everybody who's watching this want to now jump in and both for themselves understand kind of better skincare and what should we do now? Where should we go? What links do we need to go to? Is there voting we need to do? How can we watch the movie when it comes out? Give us all the practical details.
Yes, of course. If you're interested in watching the film, go to www.inthesunfilm.com. You can check out the trailer there. You can read more about the film. You can learn more about the characters in the film. We have some incredible characters. One of my favorites is Stu. Stu is a 86-year-old former circus performer who lived his whole life outside in his 20s in a Speedo, doing backflips and cartwheels in a traveling circus with no sunscreen on at all. And he's facing the consequences of that later in life, but he maintains this incredible joy of life and optimism that really, he's an audience favorite. Let me just say that. And I'm excited for people to see his story and learn from him and the other great subjects we have in the film. So inthesunfilm.com. The film will be available April 27th, so next Tuesday, streaming and on demand. It'll be free to view on many platforms, and I hope you check it out.
Great. Terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tyler. I think we're coming up on time, or no? We have more time. All right, let's do it.
I think we got a little bit more time.
Oh, we do. All right, we have 10 more. Okay, perfect. Tell me about Stu. I thought it was some, and also how that character of Stu, he wasn't supposed to be the main character, like he wasn't supposed to be the lead, but during the creation of the film, he became more and more important. Tell me a little bit about Stu.
Yeah, so when, like I said, we did test screenings throughout the creation of the film, and we didn't just look for data on like, is this a persuasive asset? But we looked for data on what scenes are working, what scenes are not working, what characters are resonating. And we saw, you know, certain characters were scoring much more highly than others, and we adjusted based on that. So we put in more scenes of this one, maybe tweak the scenes of that one, to really create a piece of content that was the most engaging.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we did in the test screening was viewers had a remote where they could kind of, if they tapped it, it indicated interest and engagement. And so we ended up with a interest graph for the full 40-minute film, and we can see what moments are the most engaging or where are people bored. And we took that data and we edited the film and made changes based on it. And in fact, that data that we got led to a lot more Stu in the film, which we love. And it also led to kind of the creation of our paid media assets, because we said, okay, if you're running like a 6-second bumper on YouTube and you only have 6 seconds to communicate what this film is, what's an engaging clip to show? And so we went right back to that data, and we said, oh, let's take that, let's put that in, and use that as the ad.
Yeah, I want to connect that because I bet there's a lot of people in the audience are marketers, but more traditional, I would say. So if you've gone through that part of your earlier career as well, where we've been the brand manager at Band-Aid and First Aid, and you've been at Coca-Cola, and we've been at Listerine, and that's what lessons can would you teach your younger self here? So when you were more in the kind of traditional marketing side, what were some of the learnings that you now have that you could have applied earlier in your career, you think?
I think, I've worked at a few different brands within Johnson & Johnson, Band-Aid, Listerine, Nicorette, Nicoderm. I think the common thread is, one, good marketing always starts with a consumer insight, really understanding what is it that the consumer needs and wants, or maybe needs but doesn't know they need it yet. So figuring out what that is and then giving that to them through either a product innovation or, great copy in your advertising. That's when you figure out that intersection between like good communication and a consumer need and insight, that's when you see results. And so I learned that throughout. And I think In the Sun is really a great example of that taken to the next level, right? Because up until to date, the longest piece of content that probably most CPG marketers have worked on is a 30-second spot. And here we are saying, let's make a 40-minute film. So keep the consumer at the pulse of everything you do, and you'll find success.
Yeah, great. I would love to learn about you in your entire career. You're kind of bridging this like logic magic thing for me, like you're switching between this ability to understand consumer, understand data, understand insights, understand what's going on, but also then over to something that is not as quantifiable. So it's kind of, you have two sides of your brain, I think, and you're able to switch between those two. Is there, talk a little bit about the data side and the logic side. Where do you look for data? What type of data interests you? What do you not use? What are you missing? I just want to understand, we're all kind of data-driven marketers at some degree, right? So talk a little bit about data. Do you find fascinating and interesting?
What I love about data, especially in the digital space, is how much there is of it. Like you can almost find a piece of data for whatever it is, whatever the question is that you have. Like, so throughout my day, I'm using tools like Google Analytics or Micmac for insight on shoppable ads, or looking at the data from the film and drop-off rates. So data is making our jobs as marketers both easier and harder because there's so much more data to look through. But the challenge is like finding the right cue from the data. What is the right insight from the data that's going to lead to a better campaign or better performance? But this is data that we never had before. So overall, it's great, but it definitely means that as marketers, we're constantly having to upskill ourselves, learn about data analytics, how to extract value from the data, and then make changes from the data. I think that third piece, make changes from the data, take action, is the piece that so often is missing. And so certainly when I'm working and doing marketing campaigns, that is something I focus on. Like, what is the actionable insight here that we can go in, maybe write a new article for our site, for our blog, because we saw this trend coming up, or make a change to a product because we saw that, consumers were having difficulty with X part of Skin 360. So keeping an eye on not just like the what, but the so what is really important.
Yeah, that brings me to a topic that I'm kind of curious about as well, as if the audience is excited about creating a studio themselves or creating something similar. How do you think about how do you go about doing that? What type of profiles for people do you bring inside, and who do you partner with, and how do you set it up to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting started, so don't take what I say as gospel, but you definitely want to have a good tie to marketing and that consumer. You also want to have a creative mind, right? So we have some very strong creatives on our side who have a vision for what we're trying to achieve as a brand. That's, very clear in our brand purpose. Like you said, the skin is not a barrier. It's very aspirational. So how do you want those kinds of thinkers? And so oftentimes that could be at your creative agency, it could be in-house. I think no matter which way you go with your studio, you need that kind of creative lens and that creative thinker as part of the core team. And then you want storytellers. So we don't have in-house production at Neutrogena, but we do have a roster of incredible agency partners who have done great work for us. And so when setting up the studio, we kind of look to those partners and say, which of these partners is going to help us best achieve this specific project? And in the case of In the Sun, we worked with a great partner called Florence, who's done some work for us actually on Skin 360, and said, hey, you have experience making films. I think you're the right partner for us for In the Sun. And we're really happy with how it turned out.
That's great. So learning for next time then, how are you going to do it differently the next time? What are the next aspect, right? You seem like somebody who doesn't like stop here. You seem like somebody who has this incredible drive, and you have something big you want to achieve here. And so where does this take you personally, you think? And where does it take the brand? And what should we expect here?
Yeah, well, I think we have to get through the release of In the Sun next week on April 27th first, but our mind is always on what's next. You're right. I'm always thinking. And so we're right now looking at kind of what are the other stories that we want to tell within Neutrogena as it relates to skin health, and how are we going to produce these types of content? So we're looking at different funding models. So, right, there's ways you can fully fund a film, there's co-productions, there's a development process. So learning from Hollywood and how they create films and how Hollywood studios work and trying to emulate that more within Neutrogena studios is something we're focused on right now. And finding that next story is key. If you don't have a good story, if you don't have good tension, which comes from a good consumer insight, the story is not going to be compelling enough to watch. So nailing that is incredibly important before you start your project.
Terrific. This was incredibly inspiring for all of us, Tyler. So congratulations on this, and we're very excited to see the movie come out, see it again, and see that it drives the behavior the consumers that you're hoping for, and I'll stay tuned for your next big thing.
Thank you so much, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both for another amazing chat. Tyler, congratulations on all the amazing work you're doing. And thank you, Ari, for coming onto the stage yet again. We love having you. So I hope to see you both soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.